Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Steven here, Northwest Small Batch Brewing. Today I am having a brew day, making an alt beer. Never made an alt beer before, so this will be fun. I come up with a recipe that hopefully will be good. It's pretty simple. It's kind of like a Kolsch, except it has a little bit of a dark grain to it, so it's a little bit more malty, I suppose you could say. It's going to have mostly 2-row, some Munich thrown in. I love Munich. Some black malt, and some flaked oats. That's it. I'm using Spalt hops, I believe. I'll let you know if I change that. And it's actually the same hops. It's just one hop addition for the entire thing. No, nothing else. So super simple. Everything else is generally the same. I'm going to use Kolsch yeast because it makes sense. This is supposed to be a pretty dry beer, so I'm going to let it mash at a pretty low temperature, probably about 147 Fahrenheit, and then I'm going to use that Kolsch yeast to really dry it out. So I'm going to go head over and get the grain ready. I'll have the recipe in the description as always. Keep in mind, this particular recipe, I've made it to be 3.5 gallons, so you'll need to scale it if you want to make it a different amount. All right, let's go check it out. I'm going to double mill. I'm going to separate the lighter grains from the dark grains because I'm going to do an overnight mash, and I'll then mash in the dark grains in the morning. This consists of 75% Great Western 2-row, 18% Great Western Munich, 2% black malt, and 5% flaked oats. Mash in all of your light grains. I'm mashing at 147 degrees Fahrenheit so I can get a nice dry beer in the end. All right, it's the next morning. Don't forget, I set aside that black malt. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in now, and I'm going to top mash and just mix it into the top of the mash and let it top mash for about 20 minutes. Drain the main grain. The mash is done, and it is time to drain the main grain. All right, so I'm at a boil. It is now time for the one and the only 60-minute hop addition. If you look at the recipe, you'll see a different amount than what I put in. I'm using Spalt hops, but the reason I'm using more than is on the recipe is because mine came out to 2.1 alpha acid, not the expected 4.5. So make sure you check the alpha acid that's listed on your hop package and make adjustments. Whirlfloc. If you haven't seen this trick, you are missing out. Use your drill bit attachment to aerate your wort, and then you don't have to shake the bejesus out of it by hand. Now that I'm done aerating, I'm just transferring the wort to my trusty Anvil keg/fermenter. I added some yeast nutrient at this point. My preferred yeast nutrient is Formade K. All right, I'm ready to pitch the yeast. I'm going to use Safale K97. It's a Kolsch yeast, but it'll work really well in this recipe, and it's going to ferment really nice and clean. Now that I've got the yeast on board, go ahead and put on the floating dip tube and seal her up. And now there's nothing left to do but to put on the spunning valve and throw it in my fermentation chamber. Well, y'all made it. We're here. It is the final day. So the beer finished fermenting, obviously. And I bottled it up because I had plans for using it for something. Unfortunately, I tried one of them, and I'll get to this, but I'm not going to be able to use it for what I wanted. So real quickly, if I hadn't already mentioned it, so we had 1050 starting gravity. It actually went to 1007, so it went a little drier than even anticipated. Somewhere around 5% ABV, maybe a little higher than that. It'll be up on the screen probably. Everything else was fine. So here's the deal. Like I said, I already tried this beer because I had plans to use it for something else. This is bottle conditioned. Anytime I bottle my beer, I bottle condition it because you might as well. But also because I feel like you get better carbonation that way. Yeah, we'll just call that good. So, I mean, you can tell it's perfectly fine as far as the carbonation level goes. It even smells good. I don't smell any off flavors. Not much head retention, as you can see. But there's a marked sulfur odor to it. And by the way, I've never had an alt beer, so I don't know what it's supposed to taste like. But I mean, it's not terrible, but it definitely has some kind of weird flavor to it. That's not great. And I attribute it to the yeast. I don't know why. For some reason, the yeast did not work for this one. I used K97, which is usually like a Kolsch, a very clean yeast. But what's interesting is that I did put oats in this. And I did use a hop I've never used before, Spalt hops. So that might be it. But otherwise, I followed my regular procedures. And I mean, there's almost no head retention. And it definitely has an off flavor that I'm 99% sure has been caused by the yeast. At any rate, this beer is not one for the books. I'll put the recipe, if you want to take a look at it in the description. But yeah, my first attempt at the Alt Bier, not great. And I'm not sure it's the recipe. I think next time I would use a different yeast. I have used the K97 for Kolsch before, but yeah, I don't know. Not really over the moon on this one. So, you can't win them all. I'll be back next week for another video. I do have another beer coming up, so always upward and onward. Hey, hopefully you are brewing something good. I'll be back soon. Cheers.